you grow up and everything is great, and then somewhere around 25, 35, 40, the curve goes downhill and just its decline. But no, I think it's much better to see it as that we develop, and we aren't really our full selves. I mean, one of the exciting things about aging is that you get to see a human being going through all the stages of life.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I interview inspiring and influential guests who are making their mark on the world and contributing to the common good. Contributing to the common good in even the smallest of ways is one of the scientifically proven ways we can age with vitality and deep contentment. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, psychotherapist and fellow Zestful Ager. My goal is to share optimism about aging and introduce you to guests who will excite and inspire you to share your own gifts and talents with the world. And to find out more about this podcast, my web courses, and my brand new book, Not Just Chatting, How to Become a Master Podcast Interviewer, hop on over to zestfulaging.com. And while you're there, sign up for my monthly email newsletter, The Insider, where you will get behind-the-scenes looks at my interviews and other fun tidbits. Our music is courtesy of Judy Banker. Find out more at judybanker.com.
Ever wonder what the host of Zestful Aging does when she's not podcasting? Creating one-of-a-kind earrings, of course. I've just opened an Etsy shop called Zestful Design, no S, and it showcases my fun, comfortable, and zesty polymer earrings. These earrings are fun to make and fun to wear. So check out my new shop, Zestful Design, on Etsy.
And I've got my little loyal Jack Russell Sparky right by my side. Lots of muddy paws. We just came from a lovely walk. And I'm really excited about our interview today. There's a stubborn societal belief that older people are less happy than young people. After all, the young among us fit society's ideal of beauty, which of course is highly valued. How can someone who's managing health issues, has wrinkles, and uses a cane possibly be happy? Our guest today is going to talk about the older old, those 80 and above, and what we can expect in this phase of life. Katharine Esty is a best-selling author, practicing psychotherapist, and an activist for aging well. She's on a mission to dispel myths about old age and to end ageism, which limits and undermines the most experienced among us. Her recent book, 80-somethings, A Practical Guide to Letting Go, Aging Well, and Finding Unexpected Happiness, looks at the last phase of life and how we can make the most of it. Welcome to the show, Katharine.
Oh, Nicole, thank you so much. I am absolutely delighted to be with you. And
lovely fellow psychotherapist.
Yes, we have so many things that we overlap and I think share the same mission of really realizing that there's so many possibilities now that people aren't aware of about aging, and people cling to some really old stereotypes and old thoughts that have been disproved. So I'm glad you've already mentioned the topic of happiness, because that's kind of one of my main
We're going to delve into that.
Yeah.
Let me start with something that you made very clear in your book. You say that 80 is very different than 70, and you talk about it several times and really make this distinction. Can you talk a little bit, because some people might think, once you're over 65, it all looks the same, but you're saying that 80 is quite different. Can you talk a little bit about how you see that?
Sure. I think that all the research kind of lumps people together, so it's natural that people kind of don't make distinctions. But I see that every decade has its challenges and its particular crises that people fit. And today, especially, that 70 now is the new 60 or maybe the new 50. People are doing all kinds of amazing things. But I found, and I'll just be open and honest with your you audience, I'm 87, so I can speak with I'm there. I am in the middle of, in fact, over the middle of being in my 80s. And I think that what happens in the 80s is almost everybody needs to make some transitions. And that it's those transitions, some of them interior attitudes and some exterior things like just moving to a different place.
Mm-hmm. Like when you say moving to a different place, I know that you live in a community.
I do. I live in a retirement community, and most people, I think, in their 80s either move to be closer with some of their children, move to a community, downsize from a house to a smaller place. That this is very common, more common in the 80s. And then, of course, the other thing that's different is 80s do face health issues. I was in tip-top health until just this June. I mean, I could walk, I could hear, I can think, I really was doing remarkably well. People would all say, "Katharine, you're walking so fast." I was known as that person that was walking around here. But I did have a major operation, and so I, like most people in their 80s, had to confront a major health issue. And I am exactly what you said. I actually now use a stick. I don't use a cane. I don't like the cane, but I have a hiking stick. I walk around both outside and in my building here. And then people lose their spouses. Many more people lose a spouse in the 80s. Mm-hmm. So but it is what I've learned is that it's how we confront these things that turns out that when I turned 80, I was in a kind of a funk. I thought, oh no, I am old. Finally, I admitted I was old.
Can't deny it anymore, right? It's just, yep.
No, you're exactly right. No more denial. And I took a hike, which I had done for 40 years, a little small mountain, and I just couldn't make it to the top. So I had a kind of a coming to aha moment where I sat on a stump and said, I am old, and I kind of had to face it. And then I said, well, there must be some people that are doing this well, and I decided to go out and find out who was in their 80s and having fun and aging well. And so I interviewed like 128 people all over the country of every race and religion and class and geography. And I learned most of the people I interviewed were leading very full lives and enjoying themselves. And that just was such a shock to me because I had been in such a funk when I had to admit I was old.
I see. So it's therapeutic for you in a sense.
It was absolutely therapeutic. The more I interviewed, the better I felt. And also, I realized I had a mission, I had a project, and I decided to write a book. And then I was having so much fun. And my kids.
Is there going to be a sequel? It was so much fun. Is there going to be a sequel when you turn 90?
Well, all the people that are 90 here in my retirement community, they keep coming up with stories and asking me that. I don't know. A book is a big project. Mm-hmm. I'm doing littler projects. I'm writing blogs and articles, but so I don't know about a book. And so I'm happy with. I'm actually moving toward looking at over 70s now. I'm writing a lot about both 70s and 80s. But what is trying to kind of redo people's belief systems. And the first one is that this idea that old people aren't happy, because certainly the 128 people I did have about 8 or 9 that were miserable and complainers and so on. But the great majority are so surprised, first, that they're still here in their 80s, and second of all, that they're having so much fun, and that they're so it's different than what people think. And the reason.
Oh, I'm sorry. I interviewed Jonathan Rausch, who wrote the happiness curve, and his research also found similar things. And in fact, the Middle Ages were really tough for people when they're raising kids, trying to put some food on the table, doing their jobs, maintaining the home and paying the mortgage. In fact, what his research found was that that's really a tough time, and people feel like they should be happy and they feel bad that they're not happy. So it's really kind of turned it on its head.
Sounds like what absolutely. What and that happiness curve is true. And then there's a lot of research coming out of Stanford. There's a Center for Longevity, and they a woman named Carstensen, and she's just got all kinds of research showing that people get happier, and that, but also that they don't expect to. They, if you ask them, and they all think it's going to be just sheer misery, decline, sickness, and so. But there's other good news too. I mean, which a lot of people don't know, and one of them is that all the stuff that has happened about the brain, that I grew up thinking, and I think we were all told that every day if you had a drink, you'd lose brain cells, and you kind of expected by the time you're 80, you'd have an empty head with no cells left. But it turns out that the new research, we can find that the brain is absolutely amazing. It's self-healing, and that it can heal itself from depression, from all kinds of things. And that where we thought we could, the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And that's absolutely not true. That older people can learn up to the very last days. They may be a little slower, especially on technology, but they can learn so that the possibilities that we shouldn't look at life like I think most people have in their mind that you grow up and everything is great, and then somewhere around 25, 35, 40, the curve goes downhill and just its decline. But no, I think it's much better to see it as that we develop, and we aren't really our full selves. I mean, one of the exciting things about aging is that you get to see a human being going through all the stages of life, and they can all develop, and you can develop into more happiness. I think I definitely have. This is as happy as decade as no decade was much more happy. Put it that way. I've had other.
That's wonderful to hear. I'm wondering how doing your research, writing the book, learning all of these interesting ideas about aging has had an impact on your psychotherapy practice.
Well, that's interesting. I finally, it impacted me. It has impacted my practice in the sense that I've gotten so interested in this aging work and my mission with aging and my writing. And I'm doing, some promotion of books and talks and things like that, that I finally decided after 40 years of being in psychotherapy practice to close down. So I'm right now in the process of retiring. So that, but I've been, having a full schedule until just this summer. So by November, I will have ended all my psychotherapy, but it's what I've always had is two or three careers going simultaneously, because I always had 4 kids, and I always had a job, and then I had a private practice, and so now I'm just planning to just concentrate on the writing for the next stage.
So that's one of your transitions.
Right. I'm in transition, definitely in transition. And it's because I've waited so long, I can remember I went to a financial advisor when I was about 30, and he said to me, well, when do you plan to retire? And he asked my husband first. My husband said that when he was 65. And I said, well, when I'm 85. And I think I knew myself. I loved work, and I have found it just absolutely rewarding. So it's been a pleasure. But now it feels like the apple has dropped. It's the right time, but it doesn't feel painful because it feels like, I've kind of, I'm ready.
You've graduated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Today's episode is sponsored by Kindra. Kindra is a self-care company that makes estrogen-free essentials designed by women for women to support people who experience the hormonal changes of menopause. Their line of menopause essentials includes a daily vaginal lotion that dramatically relieves vaginal dryness and 3 daily supplements, all thoughtfully designed to target and relieve the symptoms of menopause, including hot flashes, brain fog, mood swings, and more. Each of these products is backed with years of research and development to identify the most potent and effective formulations. Visit our Kindra, OurKindra.com, using code ZESTFUL20 for 20% off your first purchase. And I'd love to hear how it works for you.
The other thing, a couple more things about that I think I found a lot of people aren't aware of is that the mental health of people in their 80s is better than younger people. That, if you see somebody that's depressed, it's not because they're 80, it's because they've got something else going on. Like this Center for Longevity has found that people in their 70s and 80s have much better management of negative emotions. They are less angry. They're less anxious. You don't see, and like in my private practice, whether you have a 75-year-old couple or an 80-year-old couple, they're not throwing things at each other.
Mm-hmm. People, expectations are quite different.
Yeah, people mellow out and they kind of so that people can look forward to having some of the sharp edges kind of wearing off and being able to have pleasanter and easier relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm sure that sounds very appealing to people who are really struggling right now.
And I know I've seen, Nicole, that you are aware that so much of this is attitude too. That even research says that if you have a positive attitude about aging, you can add 7.5 years to your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you find or do you know of people who kind of made a turnaround later in life and realized they needed to change their attitude?
I think people do change their attitude, whether it happens gradually. I think as people age, that I think that what makes for happiness is to be able to grieve if the kind of losses you have, but also to be able to have the attitude to pay attention to what you still have. And for instance, I have a new boyfriend, so that's been.
Tell us about that, Katharine. How did that come about?
Well, my husband died in 2015, and I was in a support group with a couple of people whose spouses were also sick and not doing well, and we all just met and sort of cried together. And over the years, a couple of years in that group, all of the spouses died, and one of the men in the group, Peter, was I'd gotten to know him so well, and we each lost our spouses, and then we started having dinner, and then we were finding ourselves having dinner every night, and then gradually in the pandemic we moved in together.
Oh my goodness! So he's also in the same community?
He is, and so it was he's had a career very similar to my husband's, and he's so it's been a very easy transition for me, and a lucky one. So that's been particularly made my last couple of years very joyful.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that that's something that's fairly typical, is that people find love in their 80s?
Well, I think especially in a retirement community, because people are constantly moving in. And, we went, just for my story about this, that people it's kind of are here are watching for it all the time. And they get enormous pleasure out of other people's new romances. So that, Peter and I used to have dinner together, but one night we went to a dance and we kind of just were there. And suddenly we realized the next day, two different people called me up and said, could you and Peter come for dinner? In other words, we became a couple overnight. They only had to see us dance together
oh my goodness,
to assume we were a couple. And so I think, but other people do. There's lots of, people that have dinner together, and sometimes it's a romance. People don't get married usually, but they at this age, but they sometimes don't live together. But it was a blessing in the pandemic for me to have a partner to spend the time with.
I imagine. Do you have any advice for people who are, let's say, post-middle age, let's say something like, over 50? Do you have any advice as they're sort of thinking about their futures and how they might start kind of preparing for a happier future?
Well, I think the one thing I've got a couple of things there that I'd like to say. But the first is, I think, our culture has taught people that life is for the young and beautiful. And I think that is so damaging, that I often see, and I have come to see the beauty in older people that have had the chance to live these long lives and become wise. But it takes eyes to see the beauty. I often talk about the Japanese art of kintsugi, which is where they take like a broken pottery bowl, and the Japanese put it together with kind of a gold filter, and you can just so that in the pot, after it's put back together, looks completely different. You have all these golden pathways all over the bowl, and I see that they think that broken bowl restored with the gold is more beautiful than the original. And I think there's something to old age too. We have new hips and new knees and new cataracts, and we have all these hearts, pacemakers. We've got such benefit of modern medicine, and that we're able to be fully active, or we're pain-free, and that we're like those bowls, that we're even more beautiful than we were. There's something about an older person that is at peace, that is just lovely, and that it just takes eyes to see the beauty. And but I think for the people, I know you do a lot of work with people around issues of body issues, and I think. So that the advice and the thoughts I have is that's one of the places to kind of realize, start to be able to see that it's character that you can see, and that by anybody over 30, it really, I think the inside, the way you are inside, begins to show, and it's a new kind of beauty. So, but then of course, I think the other thing I've been writing and thinking about is it does help to have a meaning, a project, a mission. And so
like a purpose,
finding your purpose when you're older. And I think that's where people can be helped by, workshops and things like that to help them think through. And because I think to just, it's too long if you're retired, which many people do at say 60 or 65. You can't just,
a lot of life left.
There's a lot of life, and I think that's the big thing. What are you going to do with your life? And people need some help, I think, often, and so it's good to have people like yourself around. So it really ties in. Is it like the next stage? It's not psychotherapy, but it is helping other people to learn about the possibilities and.
That's become your purpose, and it sounds like it's got multiple benefits. It's also been helping you see things differently.
Yeah, and I think so. That's part of what and I also think that people need to get awareness about health. That I think that's what people get very sad about if they suddenly need a hearing aid, or they need to, their feet, they need to use a cane. And I think if you can be realistic and there's some skills that many people don't have, which is to let go of these kinds of things, to grieve them, but then not focus on them, and to move on and focus on what you do have. So I think what many people skip is our culture doesn't teach us how to grieve. And we grieve when maybe someone dies. But like for me, when I was first out of the hospital this summer, I was told to go on a walker. And I thought, me on a walker? Oh, no, I can't stand it. And, it took a lot of inner psychological work to make my peace with it. And then finally, now I graduated, I've done a lot of PT, and I don't need it. But for many people, they do need help, and they need to kind of make their peace with
that acceptance. That can be very tough.
It can be very tough, and yet, there's so many role models now. I mean, and that's what's in my book. I felt people need to know about these people, and I found people doing just the most amazing things. I mean, we hear about sometimes people running the marathons, but I met this wonderful woman that used to take her grandchildren on camping trips, and she learned to fly a plane in her 70s. And
oh, wow.
And she just began to be a photographer. I mean, I think it's seeing that sometimes when you don't have the busy things that we were talking about when you're in your 40s and 50s with family responsibilities, there's time to do some things you never thought you would do. I mean, right now, since this summer, I'm doing a couple of new things. I've just started a Tai Chi class, which I'm enjoying, and a dance class. And I'm also taking a course on the Supreme Court. So,
oh, wow.
Which I just did this morning. We have somebody here who taught constitutional law. And there's something to being always having a beginner's mind and taking on some new things.
That sounds like freedom.
Yeah, and another thing in the book that I talk about is that people don't know about these transitions that we were mentioning earlier in the interview, and they're bewildered by aging, and they really still dread aging. And my book is kind of a shortcut to helping people gain a more upbeat attitude, and I wrote it with two kinds of audiences in mind. People my age, the 80-somethings, who are curious about what other people are doing. How are they faring? What makes them tick, and how is it working? But also their children, their adult children, and that are bewildered by their parents. There's not good conversation between the generations, and the kids, these adult kids who are often 50s and 60s, are trying to be helpful, but they sometimes, during the pandemic especially, they got very bossy. We're telling their parents what they could do. You can't go to stores. You can't do this.
Oh.
And they didn't have any sense of how to have a relationship with this person who's at a new stage, and when you move in, when do you say, no, Mom, you really can't drive any longer, and how did you do that? That needs to be done, and how do you, so that there's a lot between the generations that, as I said, I think there's a sense of that this is an uncharted territory, that nobody has been there. When you become older, you've never been there before. And so we're all kind of learning and struggling. And the kids need help, these adult kids, as much as the people that are aging.
I see, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Katharine, how can people find out more about you and your book, 80-somethings? Where's a good place to get more information?
Well, there's two places. They could go to my website, which is just Katharine Esty, all one word, but with a capital E for Esty.com, KatharineEsty.com, and they can get my blog and see profiles of me and what I've been up to over these last 10 years since I've been really focusing on the aging. But they can also just go to Amazon, and there's reviews of my book, and the book's right up there. And I know some people are not friends of Amazon, but it's an easy and quick way to get the book. And
understood.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, it's Esty, Esty for our listeners.
And the Katharine is spelled, for those that want to go to the website, my Katharine is also a tricky spelling. It's Katharine. So it's a different spelling of Katharine, but it's me and Katharine Hepburn. So
not
good
many company.
Good company. There aren't many of us.
She aged well.
She did age
in her own right.
She was a beauty.
She certainly was. Well, Katharine, I really appreciate sharing your view from 87. I think it's so helpful to kind of put the humanity back in this whole question of, who are we as we age? And that, ageism is something that we're all fighting from an early age. Right?
And yes, I mean, when people get, people are shocked when they get put on lists of, or people that are 39, or it's called an old elderly pregnancy, if they get, and so on. We're constantly being boxed in and told, but we need to also redefine it. So being that there isn't such a stereotype of decline around the aging, and so it's but it's a task for each person. I think it does help to know some people, to have some role models, because you don't want to be doing this alone, and it takes some understanding and work. So a lot of people, I was changed by writing my book, which is interesting, but other people have told me they're changed too. I mean, one woman told me that, she was she was about 50, and she was fighting with her mother all the time. It was not a easy relationship. And she read the book, and she said, Katharine, I got to tell you, that really helped me, and I suddenly understand her, and I've got so much more patience, and it really was.
Wow. That's what a therapist likes to hear too. So you were doing great therapeutic work. Thank you so much for your time and your insight. And I really appreciate you joining us today.
Oh, well, I've loved being here. It was fun for me too. And I always like to talk about the possibilities of aging well.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends. I love to hear from my listeners. Send me an email at NicoleChristina.com. It's no secret that everyone's feeling pretty restless and unsettled right now. Our lives are upside down, and the future is feeling pretty uncertain. But if you're anything like me, organizing my stuff can help me feel a little calmer. It's something I can do to help me feel a little more in control and in charge of my own life. If you think decluttering could help you feel better and you could use a little assistance with that, check out the online course I've developed with professional organizer and designer Carrie Luderin. It's called Too Much Stuff. And Too Much Stuff is different from other courses or articles or guidance you may have used up. We give you clear steps to deal with the clutter and the tools to help you face the overwhelming feelings and the emotions that come up when we're going through our clutter. And a lot of those emotions are just feeling anxious or guilty or just basically flooded with a lot of different confusing feelings. The course is really practical. It's realistic. The lessons are short and punchy, and they're really manageable. We're not trying to set you up for some long exploratory super in-depth, burdensome experience. We want something really helpful for you right now. We all need help with our anxiety. So being surrounded by more calm and less chaos can really help. So now's a good time to clear out the clutter so we can focus on what's really important in our lives. So find out more at zestfulaging.com. You'll see more about this under the web courses tab. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email at zestfulaging@gmail.com. Thanks so much. And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest.